I think what struck me about Circuit and what stayed with me throughout the years was its commitment to ownership and was its very, very clear aim to give young people a voice. But not just any voice, a voice that is theirs, a voice that is raw and unfiltered and authentic. How can we ensure that the collaboration and the discussions between the cultural sector and the youth sector continue?
But how do we enable young people to be at the core of our organisations and thinking about young people from very diverse backgrounds, going through varied experiences? So how can we move away from that outreach model?
How much is Circuit about democratic projects? A really interesting project, and that's all it is. And how much is it really about that longer term institutional and even sector change?
A democratic practice demands that we relinquish control, but almost everyone involved relinquish some kind of control. And that's really difficult when responsibility for what happens is not equally shared amongst everyone.
I think we are on the edge of a step change in terms of levels of awareness and understanding, but how do we really get institutions to really recognise what it is that young people's organisations need, and to be realistic about what we can manage and to assist and help us realistically and constructively.
Circuit represented to us, if you're talking about democracy, a way that we could access specialist input for some of our young people that we felt really had the skills and understanding to use it for their development.
And that when we are working with young people, the demand on institutions is increasing because the rest of society is failing them. And so a cultural institution ends up playing a much more holistic, I suppose, role in someone's life.
So we had to find a kind of halfway space, a point of conversation between the young people's ownership and sense of control and power in their space, and also what we as an institution could offer and deliver with them.
We never get rid of this term, hard to reach young people, because that places all the agency in the organisation doing the reaching and none of the agency in the young people who are finding our organisations very, very hard to reach.
The question that pops into my inbox nearly every week is, have you got any young people that'd like to take part in our project?
The cultural sector seeing youth organisations as somehow kind of suppliers of hard to reach young people.
We worked with the Whitworth as a partner, and although the first contact I had with them on this project was, have you got any young people that would, the dialogue shifted really quickly to, what can we do together so that young people who access this youth provision can access what's on offer at the gallery too.
Moving forward after 4 years of testing and seeing that it works, it's now how do we share that practice, engage more people to make it sure that kind of every young person in, say, 10 years' time has had an experience to go through a project, not necessarily Circuit, but a project of a similar standard, of a similar experience level, if they want to.
The young people are the people who are going to be eventually taking over these roles in the future, so the more recognition and respect that young people have for what they're doing now is going to empower them so much more in what they're going to do later.
Is it fair to expect young people to be the agents of change? At the end of the day, are they equipped with the right skills to make this change happen?
There were young people discussing every element of British politics, screaming it into each other's ears in clubs on Saturday nights, like they are having it at bus stops. They just don't, and they're harassing people on Twitter as well, and it gets ugly when we don't have a forum for that to be able to happen.
So we are now taking that stand to really go out and empower each other to say, hey, we know exactly where you're coming from. We will work with you as well as work with the institutions, brand reputations, to enable this consistent collaboration and partnership.
You know, if young people, a diverse range of young people at the core of your organisations, they can actually change your audience. And if we're all thinking about diversity and representation, then actually why don't we think about this work that Circuit's doing in a much more wider organisational context? Really asking for brave directors to make the changes that we've been talking about, to look at the research, to look at the kind of data that's coming out, not just out of circuit, but in terms of the landscape at the moment. I think both national, international, regional, there feels like there's a call for, or a moment for a shift.